Well, hello and welcome to Misheard Song Lyrics Podcast. We're in season 3. We're going to do episode 151 today. First ever, can't believe it, Ozzy Osbourne. Let's begin. So the misheard song lyric is, years spent in torment, buried in a neighbor's grave. And then the correct lyrics is, years spent in torment, buried in a nameless grave. Neighbor's grave, nameless, pretty close. Okay, so I'm a big fan of true crime podcasts, anything true crime. And at any given time, I have several true crime podcasts on my own playlist. So when I heard about this misheard song lyric about a neighbor's grave, I'm like, gotta do it. So this misheard song lyric referencing buried in a neighbor's grave holds true to many true crime stories of victims. Most are found in a neighbor's grave, and many neighbors of that neighbor would always say something like, oh, he seemed odd and quiet and kept himself. And then we're surprised to find out later either he had, killed their wife, their family, or others, and they were next to a serial killer, or perhaps they had a dungeon in their basement, had no idea. So, all right, let's begin. I'm going on a crazy tangent. I can just go for another hour or two on true crime. So, what are we talking about? The song is Bark at the Moon. Bark at the Moon. It's his being Ozzy Osbourne's third studio album. It was done by British heavy metal vocalist Ozzy Osbourne and originally released back on November 15th, 1983. Wow, it was a mere, do the math here, 11, I think. This album also marks Ozzy's change from, usual heavy metal, but adding more synthesizer infused pop metal sound, and because it's sonic production and in Ozzy's imaging, which he has this persona of this crazy mad scientist. We'll talk about later about the actual video that goes with this. So back to the song, how did it do? It was a commercial success by reaching number 19 on the Billboard album chart, and within several weeks of release was certified gold for over 500,000 sales in the United States alone. To date, it has sold over 3 million copies in the United States. In the UK, it was the third of 4 Ozzy albums to hit their version of silver certification, which is 60,000 units sold by their British Phonographic Industry, or BPI, and that was achieved back in January 1984. The album was remastered on CD back in 1995, and again with a different mix in 2002. This is Osbourne's first album to feature guitarist Jake E. Lee, and only studio album to feature drummer Tommy Aldridge. Okay, let's talk about the songwriting drama. So there was a lot of drama regarding this Bark at the Moon. It is the only Ozzy Osbourne album in which the songwriting is credited entirely to Osbourne alone. However, I just spoke earlier of guitarist Jake E. Lee. He said, wait a minute, I helped compose a significant amount of this album's music, but was unfortunately cheated out of the writing and publishing claims by Osbourne's wife, famous manager Sharon Osbourne. So not good. If you don't know, it's always good to be the singers to sing a song, but the real money is in the songwriting because of rights, publishing rights, everything else. And then when people want to cover it, cha-ching, you get paid too. So guitarist Jake E. Lee claims that after he had composed the songs and completed recording his parts in the studio, he was pressured with a contract which stated that he would have no claim to any writing or publishing related to this album. Interesting. The contract also stated that Lee could not mention this publicly. He claims he signed the contract because he had no legal representation and because Sharon threatened to fire him and have another guitarist re-record his parts if he refused. Ooh, that's juicy. Osbourne later admitted several years later in his liner notes on the Ozman Cometh that Lee had been involved in the album's writing to at least some degree, stating that the album's title track was in fact co-written by the guitarist. Oof. And then there was also more controversy. Osbourne's bassist at the time, Bob Daisley, he also had the same type of claims that Lee accounted regarding being pressured by Sharon. And he also stated that he co-wrote most of the music with Lee and wrote the vast majority of the lyrics. Yikes. Daisley also stated he accepted a buyout from Osbourne in exchange for writing credits, or at least he had some kind of writing credit. And then Osbourne's former drummer, Lee Kerslake, who also played with Daisley in Uriah Heep after leaving Osbourne's band, say that Daisley had been hired by Sharon Osbourne to write the Bark at the Moon album for about $50,000 to $60,000 or whatever it is. He was offered the chance to write with Ozzy, and then words, music, write the album is what he said. And here's another problem with Sharon. Composed by Daisley, the lyrics to the song Now You See It, Now You Don't was a pointed, essentially, to Sharon, aimed at her, saying that, you know, I'm going to write this song, Now You See It, Now You Don't, because she, I guess, did fire him from the band in 1981. Daisley stated many years later that he was surprised the Osbournes camp allowed the lyrics on the album. Well, as you know, Sharon is a very, very good manager, and depending on if it was pointed to her or not, it's going to make money, she's going to put it on there, right? More controversy. So throughout Ozzy Osbourne's career, many religious groups have accused him for being a negative influence on the youth at the time, and that his genre of music, of heavy metal, was to glorify Satanism. And some have said that, I guess some scholar by the name of Christopher M. Moorman compared the controversy to those leveled against then occultist Aleister Crowley, which he does sing about Mr. Crowley in one of his songs. So both were demonized by the media and some religious groups for their antics, although Osbourne tempts the comparison with his song, here it is, Mr. Crowley, there it is. He denies being a Satanist. Actually, he is reported that both he and Sharon Osbourne are members of the Church of England, and that he prays before taking the stage each night before they go to concerts. So there you have it. And then here's another famous thing. I remember hearing this as a kid. I'm like, what? And I saw the pictures. So it even added to his Satanism, you know, persona. So back in 1981, after signing his first solo career record deal, Osbourne bit the head off of a dove during a meeting with CBS Records executives in LA. Yikes. Apparently, he planned to release the dove into the air, showing a sign of peace, but due to being intoxicated at the time, he instead grabbed the dove and bit its head off, poor dove. Then he spat the head out, they say, with blood dripping from his lips. And of course, despite this controversy, the head-biting act has been parodied many times over throughout his career, and it also made him infamous, essentially. And then the bat head. So this was one I didn't really know the full story, but saw it here. So back on January 20th, 1982, so a year later of the dove head incident, Osbourne bit the head of a bat that he thought was a rubber bat while performing at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. According to a 2004 Rolling Stones article, the bat was alive at the time. However, a 17-year-old by the name of Mark Neal, who threw it on the stage, so Mark Neal had to bring this bat in, said it was brought to the show dead. According to Osbourne in the booklet to the 2002 edition of Diary of a Madman, the bat was not only alive, but managed to bite him before he got bit by Osbourne, resulting in Osbourne being treated for rabies. And then on January 20th of that same day, January 20th, but in 2019, they commemorated the 37th anniversary of this bat head incident by, of course, Sharon being very smart with marketing, offering an Ozzy plush bat toy with detachable head for sale on his personal web store. It was such a great success that the site sold out of their first batch of the plush bat toy within hours. So there you go, the power of marketing. And then on New Year's Eve, 1983, this is where it kind of gets dark. So if any trigger words here, you might want to stop and just forward on the podcast. A Canadian by the name of James Jollymore, I think that's how you say his last name, killed a woman and her two sons back in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada after listening to Bark at the Moon song. A friend of the murderer said, Jimmy said that every time he listened to the song, he felt strange inside. He said when he heard it on New Year's Eve, he went out and stabbed someone. Yikes. And then adding to that terrible news, in 1984, a year later, California teen by the name of John McCollum committed suicide while listening to Osbourne's Suicide Solution song. The song itself deals with the danger of alcohol misuse, which of course Mr. Osbourne probably knows a lot firsthand. And McCollum's suicide led to allegations that Osbourne promoted suicide in his songs. Even though McCollum actually had clinical depression, his parents sued Osbourne as under the McCollum versus CBS, you can look it up, probably find it on Google, for their son's death, saying that the lyrics in the song, here are the lyrics, where to hide, suicide is the only way out, don't you know what it's really about, convinced McCollum to commit suicide. The family's lawyer suggested that Ozzy Osbourne should be criminally charged for encouraging a young person to commit suicide, but the courts ruled in Osbourne's favor, saying that there was no connection between the song and McCollum's suicide, and probably because they unearthed too that McCollum had clinical depression, that probably didn't help the parents' case. And then Osbourne was then sued for the same reason many years later in 1981 under Waller versus Osbourne by the parents of Michael Waller for $9 million, but the courts once again ruled in Osbourne's favor. As I shared earlier, other lawsuits filed in 2000 and 2002 were dismissed by the courts. In 2003, remember I talked earlier about how some former bandmates were like, hey, I helped co-write, but I was pressured to not say anything in fear of losing my job. Former band members Bob Daisley, Lee Kersley, and Phil Sosan stated that Osbourne was delinquent in paying their royalties and denied them due credit on the albums they played on, like I shared earlier. Then in November 2003, a federal appeals court unanimously upheld the dismissal by the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California of the lawsuits brought by Daisley and Kersley. Yikes. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled that Osbourne does not owe any royalties or credit to the former band members who were let go in 1981. Oof. To resolve further issues, management chose to displace or to replace Daisley and Kersley's contributions on the original masters, replacing them with Robert Trujillo on bass and Mike Bordon on drums. The albums were then reissued. Yikes, that's another slap in their face. The original tracks have since been restored in accordance with the 30th anniversary of those albums. Oof. And then in 2010 of July, Osbourne and Tony Iommi decided to discontinue the court proceedings over who has the true ownership of the Black Sabbath trademark. Because remember, Osbourne was in Black Sabbath. As was reported by, I think, a news site called Blabbermouth, both parties are glad to put this behind them and to cooperate for the future, and would like it to be known that the issue was never personal, it was always business. That's what they would say. All right, back to Bark at the Moon. Again, I mentioned it's Osbourne's third solo album after parting ways with Black Sabbath back in 1979, and his only studio album to feature drummer Tommy Aldridge, who was a fixture on his live band in the early 1980s. Tommy Aldridge also departed after recording of the album and was replaced by Carmine Appice, but returned mid-tour when Appice was removed by the Osbournes. When asked by Aldridge why Aldridge was brought back, Osbourne told Hit Parader magazine in an early 1984 article, for health reasons. He, aka Appice, was making me sick. Take that what you will. Nonetheless, Appice did appear in the popular music video for Bark at the Moon. Perfect segue to the music video. Have you seen it? It's crazy. It's cheesy. It's cheeseballs. It's absurd. I love it. Lots and lots of pirate shirts and ruffles. Cheeseball acting by Ozzy as a mad scientist who drinks a potion, I think turns into a werewolf. And then he gets chased by said werewolf throughout with a castle and everything else. So just crazy, but I love it. It's true Ozzy Osbourne. Hopefully you learned things today. I did. I learned how hard of a negotiator Sharon Osbourne is, and the true story behind the bat incident and the dove incident, and that the song is not about being buried in a neighbor's grave, but buried in a nameless grave. If you have any great suggestions like this misheard song lyric, please send it to me at Misheard Song Lyrics. You can send it via our social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then old-fashioned email. Misheard, MISSHEARD songs with an S at gmail.com, and we would love to give you a shout out. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye!